Hello and welcome to the BuiltOnAir podcast. BuiltOnAir is a regular podcast where we talk with everyday people and learn about the amazing things they are doing with Airtable. Today's podcast is sponsored by OpenSide, the leading solutions provider for Airtable customers. Check out openside.com to learn more about their products and services that can take your Airtable usage to the next level. Use promo code BuiltOnAir to receive $20 towards any product purchase. On today's episode, we speak with Abby Spyker, co-founder and CEO of Northwest Media Collective, an award-winning web and marketing agency based in Vancouver, Washington. With a degree in photography and digital media, Abby followed her passion for problem solving and founded Northwest Media Collective to help others find simple solutions to their digital needs. With an emphasis on understanding the big picture, Abby and her team develop in-depth scopes of work for their clients, and Airtable has been a big help. Abby shares a few sample bases that truly demonstrate the versatility of Airtable. Not only does she use it for the day-to-day operations of her business, but in her home life as well. She first shares with us her babysitting tracker, where her babysitter can submit via an online form her hours spent babysitting and how many kids she was watching. Abby is then able to easily see how much she owes at the end of each week. Next, Abby shows us her high-low estimator, where she has emulated the estimating tools found in some project management systems, such as Liquid Planner. She is able to enter the low and high ends of a time frame for a particular task and calculate the price for each scenario. Last, we check out an example of a project plan Abby created using Airtable's page designer blocks. She works around the one-page limitation by using one block for each page and ends up with a beautifully laid out scope of work. Check out the show notes to learn more about Abby and Northwest Media Collective. Hi, Abby. Thank you so much for joining us on BuiltOnAir.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How about you today?
Doing well.
Excellent. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here. And I figured we'd just start with a little bit about who you are and what you do out in Vancouver.
Okay. Well, I am the CEO of a digital marketing agency, Northwest Media Collective. And we do, I guess our specialty is web design, but we've expanded quite a bit into marketing and search engine optimization and really heavily focused on the content marketing and content creation side of things and the data research, competitive audits, and all of those areas. And then we also work with kind of a network of contractors. So we do video production and commercial photography as needed to kind of go along with our client projects like websites.
Awesome. That's super cool. So you're really diving into the nitty gritty of what it takes to make a successful website run well.
Yeah. We've got a team of, there's about 11 of us now, and we've got developers and designers and project managers and just kind of focus on WordPress and really getting down to the technical side of making just about anything happen that you need on the website.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. And I'm sure Airtable plays a large role in fitting those pieces together. Yeah. Awesome. So and you're the co-founder?
Yep, I'm the co-founder. So Travis Buck is my business partner and my life partner. And we've been just running with this company for about 7 years. And we were just voted best in business for marketing this year and web design last year. So
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. That's super, super cool. So how did you, what was kind of your foray into the industry? Like, were you always in web development?
I have a degree in digital media and professional photography, and that sort of put me on the track. I managed a production company when I moved to Portland, Oregon from California, where I went to school. When I moved to Oregon, I ended up managing a production company, and they also had several .coms. So lightbulb.com was one that I managed, and that kind of got me into e-commerce and AdWords, and we did little website updates here and there. And then somebody that I was doing a video for, it was WordPress versus Drupal, and they were just doing this video for fun. And this woman's like, "Oh, you should really learn WordPress." And it took me a month just to figure out how to install it and start using it. But then I built some really ugly, terrible looking sites and learned a lot as I went. And then eventually got my business partner and I met because we were both hired we didn't know each other, but the marketing person for Clark County thought it would be a good idea to hire him as a developer for a website and me as a designer, which usually don't hire two companies. But it turns out that he really knew all the code stuff, and I was very focused on the user experience and the visual side of it. So we've been able to do well in that kind of balance.
That's great. So it definitely like the best of both worlds kind of collided here for that. That's great. And so I'm interested, do you use a lot of your art background in your technology world? Like, as myself as an artist and like a developer, I find a lot of parallels, and I think it's a really interesting topic to dive into.
I mean, I think I do. I certainly always think about, I don't know, just things looking nice and framing and lighting, and even as it plays into, picking stock photos or making decisions that are going to impact the look of a person's website, how things are in the natural world, how they're going to be in the online world. There can be parallels there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're, as far as stock photos go, just random question, are you taking any of those pictures yourself, or do you have a library of photos that you've taken?
It depends on the project. I mean, we're doing a big e-commerce overhaul, and because I did the lightbulb.com, I've done thousands of parts photography. So we did about 150 product photos, and we went to their facilities and took pictures of the welders working and that kind of thing. But then, a lot of times we've just got a iStock account, and so we can just use photos as needed in there, or backgrounds or vectors, or, there's always some kind of stock.
Yeah, absolutely. So how is Airtable playing a role in your business day to day? I'm sure that's a very loaded question.
Yeah, the running joke around my office is the number of times I've said Airtable on Slack, they did some kind of, search, and many, many times, because I think Airtable can solve all the things. And indeed it does help in a lot of ways. And I think for me, because I'm not really a developer, but I do understand WordPress and I understand databases, but it wasn't really until Airtable that kind of the way those things relate clicked for me, because it's more visual and more intuitive and less code and letters and shapes on a screen. So
absolutely. Yeah, I love the way it visually lays out how a database is structured. It does allow you to really kind of wrap your head around it in a new way.
Yeah, and it's hard I feel like it's almost hard to even communicate that value though to clients or people, but as needed, they can use it. In the meantime, we can make use of it. I have like a list of, we use it for content planning, that's social media, editorial calendars, managing writers, proposals and estimates, and audits, and internal client information files, and keeping track of contractor skill sets. That's a big one. Like somebody asked, I used to, I love video. I have a background in video, but I don't usually take on the actual video production work myself. But because of my experience in it, I understand that there's a broad types of skill sets and price points and different people for different jobs. So I've started to kind of take notes on the contractors in Airtable, or even sometimes have them fill out a form themselves. And then when a colleague wants an aerial photographer, I can just set up the view, send them the link, and there they've got 5 different ones to choose from.
That's perfect. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So yeah, everything from organizing who you're working with to who you're working for, it's perfect. Awesome. And one thing that you had mentioned that I was really interested in was how you said that Airtable helps you make cleaner scopes of work. And I think that that's a topic I want to know a lot more about.
Yeah. And I was even reluctant to even go into that conversation today, because I feel like it's still a mess in terms of, but that's the cool part about Airtable, is that you can, clean up and refine as you go. So what I found is that we've really, I personally take proposals very seriously. Sometimes it's a lot of hours that go into them. We're really clear in writing out what we're doing and all of the details, so that there's nothing left, no questions left unanswered. But what that results in is like a 15-page proposal with a lot of words. And what happens then is a lot of the main the meat of what we're doing or what we need to be aware of gets kind of buried in there. So I've started to use, and also then when we're doing really custom SEO work, there's so many different types of services and different levels of services that we can offer that Airtable lets us kind of make those choices and spit out numbers that we can then transfer into the proposal, but then also we can give kind of the overview sheet both to our internal team and then to our clients.
That's awesome. And are you using the page designer block for that?
Yep, I've used that. So we've done that a few times, and it looks really nice, but it's also a little bit cumbersome because when you go onto the multi-page, the pagination thing. So
yeah, I'm hoping that that's something they'll pay more attention to very soon. I mean, they've made a couple improvements lately, but like I definitely multiple pages and being able to grab it, like automate grabbing the PDF and just attaching it to the record.
Right. Yes. Download one at a time and then group them. Yeah, that's a little silly, but
yeah, exactly. Are you structuring that database in a way that it's like you have your clients and then the main goal, and then is it like each table, or do you have multiple tables going of like, these are the events that happen and these are the things that need to happen for each?
Yeah. And we've got varying levels of depth in terms of are there sets and subsets and right. Because for example, for SEO, you've got, what locations are you targeting? Who are your competitors? What are your KPIs? What's your current stats? Gathering all of that information kind of makes sense to be in different tables, but then you got to pull them into the one table to do the
summary.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so SEO is something that's way over my head. Like, are you able to give like a elevator pitch of like the most important things to think about with that, I guess?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've done SEO for a number of years, and a few years ago, I really didn't like it because it felt like, this is what you have to do. You got to decide on your keywords. You got to put it in there. Who cares? Just get the words in there. That's the whole point of it. And it just felt really uninspired. But then, we met someone who's now leading up our marketing and SEO department, and she presented it in such a way that now I'm really excited talking about it, because basically you can, I love data, and you can take information, for example, what keywords are driving people to your competitors' websites. So then you have a list of keywords that people are searching and then using to click and get there. And then you can look at that information and you can see which of those keywords are relevant to you, which of those keywords are not too terribly competitive. Because if you have a brand new website with a low domain authority, you could write all day, every day about, HVAC and never come up on page one. But there could be a lot of longer tail keywords that are potentially even more likely to lead to an actual customer, like, hire an HVAC company or something along those lines. And you can target that information and then come up in search much sooner. And then there's things like, featured snippets at the top of Google when you search for something. There's things you can do to target those. That's ranking in position 0, it's called. And then just below that, there's people also ask. So these questions that people are already asking. So you can try to rank in those areas and you can get a lot of traffic, but you can also use that information to see what people are actually asking. And then it goes into the technical side of H1s and, putting your keywords in the H1 and secondary words in H2s and just a long list of technical stuff. But once you get all the content and then you get backlinks, which are links to your website from someone else, and Google sees that as a vote of confidence. So they're going to be more likely to show your website if you have a lot of backlinks compared to someone else that nobody's linking to. So content and backlinks.
Sorry, oh my goodness. No, it's fascinating to me, seriously. And you know your stuff, I can definitely tell. It's just so much to remember. And that's just one small portion of websites and of the World Wide Web, which it's so impressive to me that you've built this well-oiled machine. It's great. So I'm interested. So we talked about how Airtable is helping you at work. but there's also another part that you had mentioned to me about how it helps you at home as well. You want to talk
Yeah,
about that?
yeah. So when I think about my Airtable at work, I've got about, I don't know, 300 bases, and probably 20 of them get used regularly, and they're all sort of extra tabs, and I start duplicating, and yeah, it's kind of a mess. But then when I thought, well, what would I talk about here? I was thinking of my babysitting Airtable, because it's just clean and it's nice, and I think it's a small enough focus that it allowed me to kind of dial in some of the parts of it. So basically what happens is I'm very busy. I have a babysitter. I've used to babysit when I was growing up, and I feel like I kept track of my own hours. Anyways, I can't keep track of someone's hours and how much to pay them. And then it compounded the issue when my sister's kids were going to be watched part of the time. So then we're going to pay the babysitter two different rates. And sometimes she'd have 2 kids, sometimes she'd have 4 kids. So I basically just gave her this, little form that says, date, how many hours with 2 kids, how many hours with 4 kids, any notes or comments, and she would just submit it. And she happily did that every day. And then it would just calculate exactly how much my sister owes me and how much I owe the babysitter. And then I can log the payments, and then there's something with the different views. So if I haven't paid, then they go into this view of unpaid, and then those views I can add those. This is really not coming out the way it is in my brain.
No, totally.
Yeah, then it's easy to kind of add the things that haven't been paid yet in, and super clean and tidy.
No, that's perfect. I think I would have loved to have something like that when I was babysitting when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly just me waiting around, and for them and awkwardly standing there until they maybe hand me $20.
Yeah, and then Venmo, right? So I never even, and I mean, it felt a little weird, like, here, fill out this form, but it worked. And then she could put little notes, which was good because I wouldn't always see her because they'd go to my parents next. And so it was a good way to kind of stay in touch a little bit.
Yeah, that's perfect. Do you have any other plans for future Airtable bases or something that's in the works?
Always, I guess my focus for this year, one of my main focuses is, repeatable processes. I mean, that's like a continual need, but to really focus on those more. And then because once you have those, you can refine them better. And I think Airtable is a great way to do that. And then the other thing that we haven't really implemented in a consistent way is just flagging and learning from each project. So I want to do like project flags. So we might have for example, we had a website that took, the client brought it to us and it took 2 days to migrate it because it was so big and no automatic migrations would work. And we didn't flag that. So then when we went to launch their large website after making some changes to it, it took, a while, and we hadn't really anticipated that. So just having those types of flags that you review at every milestone, but then also flags that you learn, like industry specific flags. So things that are relevant for attorneys, for example, you can kind of build this repository of insights and helpful information for future projects.
Absolutely. And things with law changes and anything pertaining to your industry. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So did everyone in your team kind of jump on board right as soon as they saw it as well?
Well, oddly enough, my developers don't think Airtable can just solve all the world's problems or every website need. But it was one of my developers that brought it to my attention to begin with. And definitely, I would say marketing and SEO were using it a lot, even more than Basecamp, which we use for project management.
Yeah. Yep, I've actually dabbled in Basecamp a little bit myself recently. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's basic, but we went through a whole process. We moved to a new project management system, and we're like, oh, this sucks. And then we found EverHour. So one of the issues was time tracking. And so now that we have this EverHour Basecamp integration, it works pretty well for all the time tracking we need to do.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I bet. So I'm interested more in so you mentioned your clients are you'd have a light HVAC or a photographer or anything. Is it just all sorts of industries? Just anything?
That's kind of what we've been doing, but I would say we're moving more towards somewhat more established businesses that are looking for longer term, we like the long term partners. The websites we build just take a, a lot of hours, and so there needs to be budget to account for that. And so we find that we've done quite a bit with engineering companies and then construction, larger construction companies that manage teams of people. So that's
Nice.
maybe becoming a niche, but also manufacturing. So yeah, it's still pretty broad.
It's so cool. And I mean, that kind of echoes to a point like Airtable as well, because it can
Right.
fit so many boxes and industries.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And it must be really cool to get to learn about all these different industries as you're diving into their websites as well.
That's like one of my favorite parts about it is just really, really getting to understand their business and feeling like this part of their team. And of course we stay a part of their team, but I also know that that's fleeting because once the website's done, then we go into kind of a different mode.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really cool though. So I'm excited to see more about what you've done with Airtable if you want to share your screen.
So these are kind of the different ways that I know you want me to show you Airtable, but these are the different ways that I'm using it. So for content planning, for proposals and estimates, for like competitive keyword audits, content audits, social media audits, internally client information, pretty standard stuff, and then the babysitting share. So I don't know. Do I have time to show you a couple, or should we just pick one?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's start with the babysitting share. So basically what would happen is, as far as the babysitter is concerned, she will just fill in this form, and it will also timestamp when she filled it in, but she can put the date here. Let's say here we did 3 hours and 2 hours. And that's it. That's all she has to do. Then on the back end, we go to full view. You can see this is kind of logging lots of things. So we've got, the number of hours with 1 to 2 kids, 3 to 4 kids, the timestamp, and then it's calculating how much she should get for the 2 kids and how much for the 4 kids, and then it's adding that up, $52. And then I changed it to my friend. I don't know why I was getting this ready, but I thought it was maybe more relatable. But basically, this would be how much my sister would owe me for her kids. And so, it's doing the formula. So she was giving an extra, $6 per hour there. And then when I go to pay the babysitter, I would just come in here and the date. And I can just come in here. This was a cool thing. So what I found is the more time logs I had, the more difficult it got to choose which ones I was needing to add. So this is set to limit record just to the unpaid hours only. And so if we come back over here, we've got unpaid hours. And that's filtering where the date the babysitter was paid is empty. So if there's no date, they haven't been paid. So then I can come in here, and normally I would just pay any unpaid hours. Oh my gosh, I've got to get them all in. And it's adding them up in there. So now it's just, here's how much the babysitter, this can go away. So now I know I got to pay her $380. I just click on Venmo, send her $380, and just because I could, I uploaded like a screenshot of the Venmo payment.
Right. No, that's perfect.
And that's it.
Super creative. And I love the limiting it to a view thing. I'm so happy that they came out with that. That's been super helpful. And you definitely did it in a very creative way. I really like it.
Yeah. So that's that.
That's super cool.
And then what else? So the thing that I would say I'm really happy with and that I've used it the most for is my low high estimator, I call it, because let's say about 10 years ago, I was working with someone and he introduced me to Liquid Planner. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like $100 a month per user, or maybe it's 50, but it's very expensive. And but it has this cool feature where you can estimate time on a low end and a high end, and it kind of averages it out,
Right.
which I find to be really useful because we always seem to go over or under time in different areas. So if we break a project up into small enough pieces and do kind of a low and high end estimate and then average that out, it helps us get fairly close to, a correct estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, when it comes to robust projects like, adding e-commerce functionality and Google Shopping to an existing website, there's so many parts from design, testing, wireframes, payment processing, and just many hands touching it. And so if in the past, I would kind of just based on feeling and experience assign a number, but as our projects get bigger, that gets, riskier and riskier and harder to actually do. So this forces us to be realistic and say, yeah, it really is going to take, 300 hours to do that project. So.
Right. No, that's awesome. And yeah,
So,
Liquid Planner. So this is kind of like your version of Liquid Planner in a way.
yeah. So, and we can do it a couple different ways. So if, we have about 120 clients on maintenance plans. And so a lot of times it's not always a full website build. A lot of times they want to, they want to add a events calendar to their website. And so, so there may be, a variety of things involved. You might have to do the discovery, research plugins, test and theme, that kind of work. And so our developers can help estimate that stuff. They can say probably 3 to 6 hours. We could fill the rate in later. And then there's probably the setup. And so we can put, set up the plugin. This is really rough, but let's just say 5 to 10 hours. There's the project management and communication side. So that's, we think it's going to take 3 weeks, an hour a week of meetings. And, so let's say 6 to 9, because you got meetings and email. So an event calendar really wouldn't take this long, but it would add up with all the different pieces. So right now I'm tagging it. I'm using this prefill. I just added this morning when I was like, oh, I got to make this better. But use the prefill so it tags it new, because what was happening is when I go to the table, I would do a different view per client, but I'd have to then create the client view, and then I don't know, it just seemed like it added an extra step. This way, now it's new, I can just change it from new to the client. Perfect. Without having to set it every time, and they'll both show.
I know what you mean, all the little intricacies of Airtable and why you need to do certain things. It's sometimes hard to explain.
With the views and all of that. So now, we can see once I put in the hourly rate, then we've got kind of the low end, the high end, the total. And typically what we'll do is we'll give an estimate, and then we'll say, but not to exceed. So if the estimate were 5,500, which we would do an event calendar for much less than that, but if it were, then we'd say, 5,500, not to exceed, potentially as high as the high end. We kind of use that as a base point to the plan. But they get, quite long and elaborate. And I've played with different, I've played with different ways of taking it a step further then, where you've got, I can show you maybe in the, where is that? It's going to show you in the scope of work document, but I don't know. Oh yeah, this is what I was playing with then. The idea would be to take it a step further, and instead of just having the grid with the pricing, we can just add in the different, what am I trying to say here?
Like packages?
Different packages, and a lot of times we'll have, required things. We can't do this without the wireframe, and we can't do it without the, planning, but we could do it without the logo refresh. So people want, they're like, oh, why don't you give me 3 different options? Well, this does make it a little bit easier because you can kind of set the stuff as optional, and you can take stuff out if you're trying to hit certain price points, and just kind of, that's what I really like, is being able to just play with the numbers or what's included in order to present some options.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. And I think you definitely have done a really good job of emulating that Liquid Planner feature, because I have used Liquid Planner quite a bit. And yeah, and I did like that feature about it a lot, because it gave you a good idea of what you're aiming for. And you definitely captured that here.
One thing I guess we talked on this, I don't know if it was during this the interview, but our proposals, because we do fairly robust marketing plans and websites and all of that, they've gotten really long, and they're very thought through and very intentional, and everything's in there for a reason. However, they end up being 15 pages of words, and then what ends up happening is, even though I put lots of time into that, it's hard for the development team to know what pieces to extract for their needs. It's hard for the client maybe to know. My fear is that, like, the meat of what we're doing for them is getting lost. And so I've used this a few times, and it's worked well, but I haven't done it as much as I would like to yet. But these sort of scope of work documents using the page builder, and I just put some dummy information in here, kind of changed some of it around, but this could, in theory, be like a list of multiple proposals. Right now, I just have it narrowed down to the one.
Right.
And it's the page builder, right? So it's got to pull the pieces all from a single tab. So I've got the SEO tab. Some things are added in here manually. Most of them are being brought in with a lookup field or something along those lines. And then one cool thing, we do a lot of competitive keyword audits. And so if I want the SEO report or the SEO plan to include a list of competitors that we may then in the future use for doing auditing, we already are kind of set up with a place to start to track that information.
Right.
And so to just kind of give you an idea of what we have here, let's see. So we've got kind of a proposal overview. This is, all the key information, how much it's going to cost, what we're doing in recurring versus one-time services. And then, this is a pagination thing that's annoying, because you kind of have to go into each one, but maybe not forever.
Hopefully not.
And the other thing that I found, and I've worked with a variety of SEO companies, and we do most of the stuff in-house now, but we still work with sometimes, with a third-party company to do some of the lower-end blogging and reporting. It sometimes works better when we add that into the mix, depending on the client. But even with them, just the key details just get lost. So having one place that kind of tracks the goal, the method, the company overview, even like the target area, like where we're targeting for SEO, because even that stuff sometimes gets lost. Like, oh no, it's not Portland, it's Vancouver, or, so that doesn't happen with us, of course, because we're using Airtable and paying very close attention every moment. But this gives a nice way to kind of have everyone on the same page. And also you can even see, I didn't have everything. I didn't have the client identified keywords, but at least that's called out here, so we can know that that's something we still need to find. We've got the competitors, and a lot of times with like a competitive keyword audit, we'll get 6 websites from the client, but then only a couple actually have any good organic ranking to even learn from. So this can be a way to get, official approval on which ones we're going to be using for the work. We can identify what the KPIs are and our goals that we're trying to shoot for, because different clients have different things that you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't do it on this one, but I had on another one where I was pulling in the original, like the baseline. So the organic traffic, bounce rate, all of that, so that when we then add, reporting in each month, we can see how that stacks up.
Yeah. And see how it's improved over time.
Yeah. Okay. So the recommendation, this is the part that is pretty intense. So this is the part that, in the proposal, we list out what is schema markup site-wide. What does that mean? Why does it matter? I mean, I think that information is extremely helpful. However, each one of these having, a paragraph and some services listed next to it gets really big. And so this kind of shows you, okay, one-time services are going to be about $4,000, recurring monthly services are going to be $1,500, and then this block time is something that we've added in, because there's a lot of things that either there's no true finish line, or every project's different, so you don't really know how much time it's going to take, like cleaning up technical site issues. For example, you could probably do 30 hours a month forever and still be working on that kind of thing. So we kind of allocate, okay, 10 hours a month, we're going to work on these things. We're going to use our expert judgment to, put the energy where it's going to pay out, pay off the best for your needs.
Right.
And so then it kind of just makes it crystal clear that they're going to be paying, $2,600 a month ongoing, and then the $4,000 one-time fee, and gives them some next steps. They could schedule a call with Calendly. They could submit feedback. No one's submitted feedback with form, but they can. So I put that option in there. And yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah, that's great. No, those are laid out super, super clean. They look beautiful, really.
Yeah. So yeah, each one of these is, of course, its own record. So it's got all the
nitty gritty
all the nitty gritty, yeah, but not kind of cluttering the page. So.
No, that's perfect. I agree. I think that that's a good decision to like kind of back it up a little bit and say, hey, we can dive into this later, but this is the overview of what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really, really nicely laid out.
Thanks.
Of course. That's super, super cool. Right. Well, thank you so, so much for sharing that with us and for taking the time to talk with me today.
Happy to chat. Yeah, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing too, but I guess that's not the purpose of the podcast.
Oh my gosh. No, I'd love to chat more with you about it for sure. And yeah, no, it was great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Allie.
And where can our listeners go to learn more about Northwest Media Collective?
You can go to our website, northwestmediacollective.com.
Excellent. All right, and we'll include that in the show notes as well.
Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate the backlink.
Of course. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Abby. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.